into your Friday edition of Bet. I'm your host, Anita Marks. We've got a lot going on, obviously, with NBA playoffs in action. But big news last night. The NFL released its schedule for this coming season, the 2023 season. And no other league, in my opinion, and I'm sure with yours, that the world comes to a screeching halt when they release their schedule. Nothing like the NFL. So we're going to spend this edition of Bet getting you ready for a few teams. Number one, Rich Cimini, who does a great job covering the Jets. I'm actually wearing this shirt today in his honor and talking about the team that he does cover. So as we know, Aaron Rodgers now starting quarterback of the Jets. So we're going to dive into all that. Marcel Louis-Jacques, who covers the Miami Dolphins, is going to be joining us. We'll take a look at their schedule, over/under win totals, very similar to the Jets. What side of the coin is he on? Nick Wagoner from the 49ers. Who's going to be their starting quarterback? Who knows? But we will dive into some win totals. And Lindsey Thiry, who always does a great job covering the LA teams, she's going to jump on board, and we'll talk about those Rams. But first and foremost, let's bring in Rich Cimini. He's been with us quite frequently, and I have a feeling, Rich, this is going to be a common thread. We're going to see you a lot in this season, considering Aaron Rodgers is starting quarterback of your Jets. So much going on there. The schedule, the first thing that popped out to me is that there are 6 island games. That's what we're calling them now. Island games on the schedule. Let's take a look at it. They kick it off with Buffalo. Wow. Welcome to the New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers. Dallas, New England, Kansas City, at Denver, Philadelphia. Tough 6 games there before their first bye. I guess my question to you, Rich, is can you find 10 wins on this schedule, considering that their win total over/under is 9.5?
Oh, absolutely, Anita. I can find 10 wins for sure. I think this is a 10 to 11 win team. I would take the over right now if I were betting that. Look, I think you're right. That is a brutal schedule to start out with. 6 teams, all really good. In fact, 4 of those teams, we're talking about the highest scoring offense from last season with the Chiefs, with the Cowboys, with the Bills, and of course the Eagles. So it's really tough. But I think the Jets are going to go 4-2 out of that opening stretch, and I think the Jets are going to win 10 or 11 games this year.
So first things first, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers, right? A lot has been discussed in regard to the fact that Nathaniel Hackett is here, his former offensive coordinator with the Green Bay Packers. So a lot of people are expecting an easy transition, that he's going to implement a system here that Aaron Rodgers feels very comfortable with. But and of course he does have some familiar faces as well that he's going to be throwing the ball to. But how big of a learning curve, or what's the good word? A consistency curve should we expect, especially right out of the gate, Rich, against the Buffalo Bills? I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, the Bills have a really good defense. They were highly ranked. I think they were first and second in total defense last year. So that is a tough one out of the box. The Bills are traditionally have dominated the Jets in recent years, although the Jets did manage to win 1 last year. But so you asked about the learning curve with Aaron Rodgers, and let's compare it to Tom Brady. When Tom Brady went to Tampa in 2020, there was a steep learning curve because he was learning an entirely new offense. And if you recall, the Buccaneers were really struggling through the midpoint of that season. They almost fell out of the playoff race. It wasn't until they got their heads together and changed the offense more to what Brady was used to that the Buccaneers finally took off. And of course, we know they won the Super Bowl. With the Jets, it's different with Rodgers because he knows this offense. He knows the play caller in Nathaniel Hackett. So they can skip a couple of stages. That's not to say there's not going to be growing pains, because even Nathaniel Hackett said that a couple of weeks ago. I was talking to him. He said, yeah, there's going to be growing pains because Rodgers may know the offense, but the other players don't. So it'll be easier than what Brady had in Tampa, but it's not going to be an absolute cupcake. There's going to be some growing pains.
Rich, one more question before we let you go. The offensive line, what's the situation on both starting tackles? How concerned are you that Aaron Rodgers isn't going to have the protection that one would like for him to have? And number 2, what's the status in regard to Breece Hall? What's the rushing attack going to look like for this Jets team?
Let's start with Breece Hall. Here's the good news. The good news is the Jets absolutely say he's on track to play in week 1. against Buffalo in that Monday night game, so that is a huge plus for the Jets. You're probably not going to see him in the preseason, which is a good thing, but you will see him in week 1 barring a setback. Now, as for that offensive line, that is a different story, Anita. You hit the biggest question mark surrounding the team right now. I'd say their left tackle is Dwayne Brown, who's going to be 38 years old, and their right tackle is, I don't know at this point. It's either Mekhi Becton or maybe Max Mitchell, or maybe Billy Turner, who they just signed, a journeyman guy. So those are 2 major question marks. The rest of the offensive line is in decent shape. They're going to have a competition at center between rookie Joe Tippmann and incumbent Connor McGovern. So that's a little up in the air as well. But those 2 tackle spots, hey, look, you got a 39-year-old quarterback. You got to protect him.
Absolutely. So some reservations there for me. I think the odds makers have this right on track. I'm teetering between 9 or 10 wins. And so I'm actually going to take the under here. And I'm really, really curious how this is going to play out. Rich, thank you so much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. Have a great weekend, my friend.
You too, Anita.
All right. We go from Rich to Marcel, who covers the Miami Dolphins. Same win total there, Marcel, 9.5 wins. You look at this Miami Dolphins team on paper, you're like, wow, offense, defense, just studs. But my biggest question mark is Tua and the concussion issues that he's been facing, and can he stay healthy? With that being said, looking at the schedule, are you over or under on 9.5 wins?
Well, like you said, it all revolves around this guy just over my left shoulder. If Tua stays healthy, I'm hammering the over. Look, the first thing that stands out to me about this schedule is there are no breaks. There's no lulls. That bye week's almost perfectly in the middle of the season there in week 10. 9 games before, 8 after. In those first 9, they've got to play 5 playoff teams, including both Super Bowl participants. In that last 8, they've got to play the Bills, the Jets twice, the Cowboys, the Ravens. I mean, it's really a meat grinder. There's no wonder why this is the second most difficult schedule in the NFL. But me being the ESPN expert for the Miami Dolphins, I'm doing your job for you bettors. I've come up with a 4-step program to get 10 wins for the Dolphins. Here we go. Step 1, you got to defend your home turf. You have to be able to beat the Broncos, to beat the Panthers, the Raiders, the Titans. If you've got Super Bowl aspirations, these are all games that you absolutely have to win. Step 2, you've got to beat the Commanders on the road. It's a little bit tougher than the other 4. You want to group them into that first step. But this offense, Washington's offense, shouldn't keep up with what should be a top 3 offense in Miami. So that is 5 wins right there. Step 3, you've got to at least split your AFC East games. It's one of the toughest divisions in football, but again, if you can defend your home turf, we're at 8 wins, which brings us to step 4. You got to win 2 of these last 6 opponents, and that's the Chargers, the Giants, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, and the Ravens. You beat 2 of them, and look at that. You got at least 10 wins right there. But it's not going to be easy for a team that struggled to pass that 9-win barrier in each of the past 2 years.
Marcel, I don't want to be a negative Nelly back-to-back segments with you and Rich, but I'm leaning towards the under here. Again, I think the odds makers have this spot on. I think it's going to be 9 or 10 wins. And I've got some major concerns in regard to Tua, the concussions that he has suffered. Can he stay healthy? Can he stay upright and finish out the season as the starting quarterback? And we just take a look at the schedule, man. It is tough, right? This division, the AFC East, has gotten so much more difficult. The Bills, I love they've drafted my favorite tight end in this draft, Kincaid. So offensively, they get better. The Jets obviously get better with Aaron Rodgers behind center. And the Patriots really is the big question mark for me, but they hired Bill O'Brien as the offensive coordinator. So you want to believe that Mac Jones is going to take a step forward. And then having to go up against the NFC East, where a lot of people are expecting the Eagles to win the Super Bowl this year. The Cowboys are going to be better. The Giants got better. And then some question marks against Washington. And then, of course, they also have to face the Ravens. So I'm leaning towards the under here, under 9.5 wins. Any final thoughts, Marcel, before we let you go?
Look, this Dolphins season is going to be defined by how they respond at 2 critical junctures. The first is the first 5 games of the season. It's a heck of a trendsetter, a tone setter in Los Angeles against the Chargers in week 1. They go right to New England on Sunday Night Football in week 2, a break against the Broncos in week 3, at Buffalo in week 4, and home against the Giants in week 5. That's going to set the tone, like I said, for the difficult middle part of the season. And then, of course, the last 4 games, they go Jets, Cowboys, Ravens, and then Bills. That is a gauntlet right there. And you look at their last 3 seasons, in each of them, the Dolphins' postseason berth has been decided in week 17 or later. So there's almost certainly going to be seeding or even another playoff berth on the line when those 3 teams arrive on their schedule.
Yeah, I can't wait for week 1. Tua against Herbert. For the remainder of their careers, they will be definitely judged against one another. Marcel, thank you so much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. We go from the Miami Dolphins to the 49ers. No more of this 9.5. Brace yourself. We're talking about an 11.5 over-under for the 49ers. Nick Wagoner, who does a great job covering the 49ers, will tell us how likely a 12-win season will be for San Francisco.
Anita, a couple of things jumped out about the 49ers schedule. First and foremost, it lays out in a way that should give the Niners an opportunity to get off to a faster start than they have in recent seasons. Those first 4 games, at least on paper, all look winnable, and that's no small thing because quarterback Brock Purdy is still recovering from right elbow surgery. Now, there's increasing optimism within the Niners organization that Purdy is going to be available and cleared at some point during training camp. That would in turn make him available for week 1 and that opening stretch and give them that chance to get out of the gates quickly. One other thing, the 49ers have 2 games on Thursday, 2 games on Monday, including one on Christmas night and one on Thanksgiving night. But the stretch to watch here, if you're monitoring that 11.5 win over-under for the 49ers, is weeks 12 to 14. They play division rival Seattle twice, sandwiched around a trip to Philadelphia for an NFC Championship game rematch against the Eagles. If the Niners can get through that stretch with 2 or even 3 wins, there's a realistic chance that they can get to 12 wins or more for the season.
Nick, thank you so much. Again, I feel like I'm a negative Nelly here. I'm going under 11.5, 12 wins for a football team in NFL where parity is king. I think that's why the NFL, in my opinion, is the best league in all of them. But it's so hard to win 12 games, and we're sitting here and we don't know who the starting quarterback's going to be, right? Like, is Purdy going to be healthy or not? We just heard from Nick Wagoner. Let's take again of this at the schedule and just how difficult it is, because here's another thing. This is a 49ers team. They're going to have to take on the AFC North. We're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals, who I actually expect to win the Super Bowl this year. The Ravens, Cleveland, which I expect them to be better than they were last season, and the Pittsburgh Steelers, who I think are going to take a step up. No longer their rookie quarterback, now entering his 2nd year. And then the NFC East, the Eagles, a lot of people expecting them to win the Super Bowl. Dallas better. The Giants are better. We'll see what happens with Washington. So if Nick Purdy is not ready, do you really believe in Trey Lance? Because it's evident that the 49ers don't. I actually feel if Purdy is not ready, there's a chance that Sam Darnold might be the starting quarterback for the 49ers heading into week 1. Of course, no longer with the Jets. Had a cup of coffee with the Carolina Panthers. Actually ended the season well with the Carolina Panthers last year, but then made his way back. He's a California kid, made his way back to San Francisco, and is now playing with Kyle Shanahan. So I'm going under 11.5 wins for the 49ers because, again, just don't know what the deal is under center. Let's stay on the West Coast. Let's talk about the Rams. Lindsey Thiry does a great job covering the Rams and the Chargers. She gives us some insight on some of the travel quirks that we're going to see with this Rams schedule. Let's listen in.
Anita, there are several aspects of this Rams schedule that stand out. Number 1, there are only 2 prime-time games. That's the fewest number of primetime games the Rams have played in since 2017, which means they will not have the spotlight on them as they work through an overhauled roster. That number 2, tied for the fewest primetime games among NFL teams this season. Number 2, I am sure that the players and front office alike are a little upset they don't collect air miles on chartered flights because they are going the distance this season. The Rams will play 9 games away from SoFi Stadium. Compare that to last season when they only played 7, and 3 of those games will be in the Eastern time zone. Compare that to a season ago when they only played on the East Coast once against the Tampa Bay Bucks. And finally, number 3. There is no time for this roster to figure itself out. The Rams open with back-to-back division contests against the Seahawks and the 49ers, and then by the time they reach week 5, they will play the 2-time AFC Championship appearing Cincinnati Bengals in Cincy, and then also must play the Super Bowl appearing Philadelphia Eagles. So again, there is no time for this roster to slow play its way into the season. No time for a defense that is unrecognizable outside of Aaron Donald to figure it out. They're going to be thrown right into the mix and expected to perform. Anita?
Yeah, Lindsey, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. And taking a look at the schedule, like she said, you kick off, you got to go to Seattle. Seattle might win the division this year. I wouldn't be shocked, right? I mean, they anteed up and paid Geno Smith. San Francisco, as we know, McVay, no bueno against Kyle Shanahan. 3-9 with his coaching tenure with the Rams against Kyle Shanahan, and then having to go up against Cincinnati, that Super Bowl rematch. Only 2 primetime games. Obviously, the NFL knows something we do as well. Fewest primetime games since 2017. And as Lindsey said, man, their travel mileage, 4th most in the NFL, 26,332 miles. It's a lot of airtime. Unbelievable. So I am looking at the under here for the Rams. At the end of the day, the Rams sold their soul in order to win a Super Bowl. And it worked. But now they're sitting there and they don't have a lot of homegrown talent. They didn't have a lot of draft picks. And they are in rebuilding mode right now. So I'm going under with 7.5 wins with the Rams. Hey, as always, we like to end bet with before I let you go. And no NFL action, but we do have the XFL Championship taking place tomorrow on Saturday. The DC Defenders are going up against the Arlington Renegades. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for this matchup. How am I playing it? I'm going to lay the points with the DC Defenders. I'm going to lay the 6.5. I'm also going to play the over here at 48 for a number of reasons. DC, they went up against Arlington in week 9 and beat them already once, 28-26. They're 9-1 on the season. They put up 335 points. They've got Tayamu as their quarterback. He put up 258 yards and 2 touchdowns against Seattle in order to get to the championship. They've got a ton of weapons, so many that 4 of their offensive players made it to the all-XFL team. I'm also going to play the over here for good reason. The Renegades, midway through the season, they switched quarterbacks. They have Luis Perez, who came in and has been balling out pretty well. In fact, he put up 289 yards and 3 touchdowns against a really good Houston Renegades team in order for them to win to advance to play in the championship. And last but not least, Greg Williams is the defensive coordinator. I've got mad crazy respect for Greg Williams, one of the best masterminds when it comes to defense. But for some reason, his defense is giving up 30 points, if not more, their last 5 games. So a big reason why I do like the over here. A lot of offensive firepower on both sides and some question marks for that DC Defenders defense giving up as many points. So enjoy that championship again on Saturday. You'll be able to watch on ESPN. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to Bet. Really do appreciate it. Enjoy your weekend. Happy Mother's Day, everybody. We'll be back on Monday. We'll see you then.